question that exists today centres around the whole idea of whether we can know anything with certainty. This question can be resolved fairly easily by defining our terms. The background question is, is it really that hard to know reality? Can we know nature with certainty? And here we're not talking about nature as a walk in a national forest or something, but rather the nature as in the form of the universe, of reality, of creation. Nature is the structure or the design of reality, whether it be the sun or the mountain or our toenails or a motor car, whatever it is. And we look at the nature of anything. Another word for nature that's sometimes used is the essence, which, while it connotes things like smelly substances in small brown bottles, essence actually means the essentials, the basis, the inner design, what have you, that's necessary for a thing to be itself, which, if you recall, goes back to what we first started with as property, what characteristics, what have you. And so when we think about natures, and really natures are what are in our minds when we think of things. If we think of a tree in our minds, we're already thinking of something that perhaps we've seen, maybe generalised. It tends to have a trunk and leaves and branches and so on. And if we say it's a gum tree or an elm tree or whatever, we then are looking at a specific type of tree. But the notion of tree, the nature of tree, is something we can give thought to. And unless it's something like Santa Claus, we can see examples of it in the world around us. And they are going to exist whether we're there to watch them or not. One of the popular delusions of modern thinking, especially people that call themselves philosophers, is that the universe will stop existing if I close my eyes. We don't need to go too far down thinking about the absurdity of that. Reality is what exists independently of human awareness of it. And reality includes us. Our bodies, our toes, our fingers, our minds even. They're all part of reality. Now, a 3-year-old knows that reality exists. It takes a university education to actually convince you that it doesn't, or at least we're imagining it, or what have you. I remember having a good friend and his wife who were very fond of a certain green weed they used to smoke where they could make up their own realities. Well, that's all very fine, but it's not really reality at all. It's really a delusion in their minds. Really, genuinely, the 3-year-old knows that's a lot of poppycock. Because knowing reality means we have ideas about it. Trees, toes, you and me, in our minds. And we want the ideas that are in our minds to conform with reality. Otherwise, we'll be most disappointed because we're going around thinking something is what it is not. And so knowledge is this confidence that the ideas in our minds are conforming with reality. We move from that to the understanding of truth, and we can say that truth is the measure of the conformity of our ideas with reality. And so if we think, for instance, that, my grandmother was a Martian, it might be something I believe, might even be something convenient to tell other people, but it doesn't conform with reality. True knowledge is where, genuine knowledge, is when the ideas in our mind conform with reality and are tested Plato told us that knowledge is justified true belief. It's when we have an idea in our minds, a belief, which is true. I cannot know that my grandmother was a Martian. If necessary, to be really confident of that knowledge, I will have to somehow check it, test it, justify it. And so to have genuine knowledge, it's not good enough to simply say, my forebears were all Irish and Scotsmen. I would actually have to go back through the family tree to justify that, to check it, to be absolutely sure of it. And depending on how sure I was, is really the question of whether I had genuine knowledge or simply just a belief based on some fantasy. Okay. Now, talking about the justification of knowledge leads us to consider the way that while we believe many, many things, our beliefs can consist of certain conformity of our ideas, our beliefs with reality, or it can be merely something based on something less formal, shall we say. Sometimes things which suit us might influence us to think this or that. So when we look at the way we believe things, we can say that our beliefs are either opinions or knowledge. Knowledge are beliefs based on something less than certainty. We've been talking about knowledge as justified conformity to reality and so on. And an important aspect of knowledge is that it is found from nature. It's not invented, it is found. It may not be found directly by us. Someone might find something else, and then they might tell other people. My teachers at school told me about the existence of the United States of America. I trusted them. I may have done a bit of checking at the time, maybe talked to my parents or waited around before I became too excited about believing it, maybe by waiting for a television program to come on or something that came from America. I think, bingo, that's fantastic. My teacher had told me America exists, but now I can see that the television is telling me that some show came from America, and so I've got that extra confidence that it's not just an opinion. Maybe my teacher was trying to pull my leg, but it's actually certainty, and it certainly conforms with reality. So all of this stuff about reality keeps coming back to us. Opinions, which is something less than knowledge, are usually good as a starting point. Again, that example, I was told by my teacher that America exists, and so that was a nice starting point. Perhaps I thought that they were so awesomely intelligent and honest that I wouldn't doubt them, and so I might be happy to stay with that opinion. But little by little, those opinions can be justified, confirmed, strengthened as a result of testing and the support of other supporting evidence. One of the important things about opinions is that they can be manipulated for self-interest. Some opinions are simply invented for convenience. I'd like to think of myself as descended from Spanish royalty. That might be my opinion. I might be able to convince people of it. Often we are now living in a world where opinions are beginning to dominate over reality. That's rather a dangerous position. When we look at property rights, it's important to actually distinguish between the opinions, the commonly held beliefs, and actual knowledge. And this is especially true when we want to look at the justice embedded in property rights, because they can't be taken merely from opinions, because opinions are often the stuff of the dominant parties. Plato, in his Republic, had a character. One of the characters in the discourse that was being carried on was a gentleman by the name of Thrasymachus, and his idea of justice was that it was merely the opinion of the stronger party, and often manipulated by self-interest for malign purposes. So distinguishing between opinions and knowledge can be very important. Working out how to justify our knowledge is important.